old grandpa guitar, and let's take it out for a walk. Let's go to the park and stroll with that guitar. It's a beauty. It's a beauty. You gotta get
Everybody, Matt Bell here in like Quarantine Central in Cary, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina, coming to you with yet another live stream. I got thinking about this. I have so many stinking cool friends, so many cool friends, and so I've been trying to bring you guys some of these different friends of mine. We've talked to fiddle players in Colorado and Toronto and gosh, where else? But there's such a long list of really cool people that are friends of mine that I want to introduce you guys to. And this is another one. This is my friend John Calderon. He's been way more influential in my music career than I think he knows. There's some stuff early on when I was learning how to play this kind of music, rock and blues and jazz that he said to me that he probably doesn't even remember, but has stuck with me for a long time. So let's just, I'm going to talk less and he's going to talk more. Let's do this. Mr. John Calderon in Houston, Texas. What's happening, man?
Oh, man. You know, the world is shut down. That's what's happening. But all is well here at home. Just kind of riding this thing out, man. How are you?
Man, I'm just trying to keep my head above water.
Yeah, that's
Been
good.
doing some landscaping, so that's good.
Yeah, I know the home projects, man. Now's the time to do the home projects. Of course,
Yeah.
I feel guilty because I should know about, a half a dozen more tunes by now. I should be working some things out. It took me a couple of weeks to stop panicking.
Yeah.
And to just kind of get my bearings and just to start to kind of get over the initial shock of, what everybody's going through. So.
Yeah, it's you know, a lot of people have said like if you don't come out of this new quarantine knowing how to speak Portuguese, then you've wasted your time. And yeah, to an extent, yeah, we should be trying to get some things done. But on the other hand, we got to understand that our mental health is affected by this, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't beat yourself up if today's just not a high motivation day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, hey man, depression is real, and I think everybody's dealing with a little bit of that, you know. Um, so yeah, I think it'd be wise not to overlook any of that. You know, call your friends, call your family, check on your friends, check on your family. You know, I luckily I'm not questioning it. Luckily, for myself, I'm at peace with what's up. You know, I'm kind of okay. Everything's going to be all right. That's my attitude anyway. And so, being that that's the way it is, you know, I try to call my friends and encourage them a little bit. Hey, man, you know, we're going to be all right. We're going to get through this, and we're going to be playing again. And people that you know come out to shows, come out to gigs that are ready to get back out and support the music. We'll be doing that soon enough. So I think it's wise to kind of look at the positives that are out there and kind of cling to those things, because if you watch the news 24/7, man, that's only going to depress you.
Yeah, I don't even turn it on, man. I don't watch the news. You know, when it's okay to go play again, I'm sure my phone will start ringing, and then I'll know.
Right, right. And I'm already talking, you know, if we're, you know, as professional musicians, you know, I'm already kind of keeping in touch with, you know, those venue owners that were employing us all this time, coffee shop owners, you know, guys that do production. I just keeping in touch, man, and saying like, hey, man, how are you doing? And calling, you know, bar owners that have employed us and like, hey, man, how's it going? How are you? And already talking about the future. Like, okay, when we get on the other side of this thing, let's come up with a strategy, man. Let's do some things that'll benefit you and that'll benefit all the working class musicians that come in and out of the club. You know, it's going to be time, and people are going to be anxious to do that, don't you think?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, and I think it's true. We got to remember that not only are we hurting, the musicians, but the venues that employ us are hurting,
Right.
and those are our friends and our colleagues and our business partners, and it's important to reach out to those guys, not just like, hey, you could help me make money in the future, but hey, man, you're another human being who's in this business that's having a hard time.
Right. 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 And that was the main. I talked to you know, there's a wonderful venue here in Houston. It's called the Big Easy Social and Pleasure Club is what it's called. But it is one of, if not the quintessential blues sort of Zydeco blues rock room. You know, when you're there enjoying music, you'll often meet people that aren't from Houston, because when they come through and they'll end up there because they're told from someone, be it the hotel concierge or whatever, you need to go to the Big Easy. That's if you want to hear some blues, you know. And so I called the owner, I called Tom, and I said, hey man, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. He immediately starts talking about the club. I said, well, okay, cool, but I want to know how you're doing. Like, tell me how you're doing. Are you cool? Are you okay? Is everything cool? And then eventually we started talking about the club, but the personal human factor is before all of that stuff. You know, that's number one.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely. So, you know, we just watched the pre-roll video before we went live. Was you on stage with Al Jarreau,
Yeah.
and you spent 10 years with Al, right?
Yeah, I was with Al 10 years. I did some stuff, I think '06, and then by '07 I was in the band, was the first time I went off on tour with him. And of course he passed in early '17. So yeah, 9 or 10 years for sure.
I remember seeing you when you were part of the Lamar jazz band combo. I think probably back in what, like the mid to late 90s was when I lived in Beaumont. From like 96 through 2006 is when I was in Beaumont.
Yeah, I got to Lamar University in Beaumont in the fall of 1993. And then I left there at the end of '98. Finished there at Lamar. Yeah, I went to school there. Studied music education actually there, and a lot of people don't know it. Even my good friends, some of my good friends here in Houston. I was a trombone major in
Mm.
school. Yeah, and so I went there. That's what ultimately gave me the scholarship. And I was playing guitar, but I mean, Lamar University is where I really kind of started to kind of get serious about it, or to realize, hey, I think I can make a living doing this thing. As soon as I got there, of course, I played in the jazz ensemble as a guitarist, and immediately started gigging once I got there. So I had a great learning experience, not only at Lamar, but also out in the gig world, you know, playing with Jimmy Simmons and
Yep.
his big band.
Yep. I
And man,
remember seeing you with him.
yeah, immediately playing weddings, immediately. And it was a new world, and sitting in a big band and playing stuff. And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, that entire period. And so as a result, man, I've got a lot of great friends, family from there now that I keep in touch uh, with all the time. It was a wonderful period for me. Absolutely.
I think one of the first times too that I saw you in a smaller combo was maybe at the Changing Times in Beaumont. I think everybody played the Changing Times.
Yeah, that was a small bar room on 11th Street, if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
mistaken, Beaumont, Texas.
Sure
Yeah,
was.
yeah, that was the reason I ended up in those places is because I kept hearing about this guy that was this killing guitarist, and singing, and he's been around. Boy, he's been around there for a long time, local legend. And so I walk in the room one night to hear Scott McGill just playing his ass off,
Yeah.
and so. Uh, it was there during my time there in Beaumont that I became really, really good friends with Scott McGill, and he's a wonderful hot rod electric guitarist. But a lot of people, well, I'm sure they know, but it wasn't at the forefront. He's a wonderful singer songwriter.
Mm.
He's a wonderful singer songwriter. He writes great tunes, and so man, we became fast friends, and then really, really good friends. And to this day, we're really, really tight friends, and we even if the old cliche of if some time goes by and you don't talk to someone and you can pick up the phone and pick right up where you left off, that's Scott McGill. He's a wonderful talent, man. Super, super talent.
Man, how many times did you go out to breakfast with him after a show and sit there eating eggs or something, talking to about 4 in the morning, and just like soaking in all this genius?
Man, I can't count. And especially that stuff happened more towards the end of my education at Lamar, because, the schedule started to loosen up a little bit. And so I had more time. So I'd call Scott at midnight. Hey, Scott, what are you doing? He goes, oh, nothing. You want to go to the pig stand? And if you remember, the pig stand was this local eatery there, like a diner,
Mhm.
been around for decades, and so we right there on College, we'd meet at the pig stand around 12:30 and just solve the riddle of the universe, man, till
Oh yeah.
about 3 in the morning or 3:30. And then he said, hey, man, I'm about to go to a buddy's house and, record some stuff. A friend of his had a recording studio at home. And he goes, you want to go? I'm like, let's go. So, I mean, it'd be all burning the midnight oil of just hanging. And that's really, really where our friendship, got really close. So, yeah, man, Scott and I would have those midnight sessions all the time, all the time. And if you think about it for myself, man, I was at the what they call your professional semester of a music education degree. And so I was there, excited about finishing, excited about what's the next step, and hanging with Scott and learning all these great things, just about life and music with someone like himself. It's been around, and it was an exciting time, man. It truly was.
Yeah, I didn't get a music degree. My degree is actually in engineering. But hanging out with Scott and you and guys like Todd Howard and David Lott and all these guys around town and Keith Slack and some of these cool guys that, I
Yeah,
mean, those guys should have been charging me tuition.
yeah. I used to joke about that with Scott, because he'd say, "Come sit in," And customarily, I don't know, when you sit in as a musician someplace on someone's gig, hey, come up and play 2 or 3 tunes. Okay,
Right.
great, awesome. No, he said, go get your aunt on the break time, and then I'd play an entire set with him.
Mm.
I'd play an entire set, and I'd be looking for him to say, okay, one more tune or whatever. He goes, no, 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 hold on, we got an entire set, and so at the end of that, I mean, he would just blow me away. And I said, man, Scott, I'm gonna have to give you some lesson money after that set, because it was such a cool learning experience, man. Great learning experience.
Man, I'll never forget one of the first times I think I talked to you. You were playing at the Changing Times, and I came up to you afterwards. And you probably don't remember this, but I just started plugging my electric violin into Todd Howard's rig and running through all his pedals and stuff. And I was like, man, you got a killer tone. You got to tell me what pedals you're using to get that tone. And you were like, man, I can tell you what pedals I'm using. I'm happy to talk about that. But tone don't come from pedals. Tone comes from these. And here, this is where tone comes from. And I was like, he's right. He's right. He's totally right. And I've carried that for 20 years.
Yeah. 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 Oh, man. That's an important thing to learn early on, if you can. And I think back now because, I teach a lot as well. And I always try to tell my students the same thing. And I think about that as a young player, because I have to think back now. Okay, what was I doing? I was talking to a good friend of mine here in Houston, Texas. Wonderful guitar player, man. Mike Severson. Bad to the bone cat. He's currently doing some stuff with Robert Glasper. He'll go out with that group and play, and he's a killer player. But he's from that era that I grew up in, of 80s shredders, right? And we were talking about that, and it's like, man, when we were kids, we'd sit in our bedrooms and really, really try to copy a George Lynch guitar solo, a Jakey Lee guitar solo, or Yngwie Malmsteen, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai. And the common denominator of those guys was tone. Was tone. So you're trying to, man, so when you're mimicking a solo for learning purposes, you're really, really trying to get all of the nuance of your instrument, and because I had to think about it, man, that's, and we were just kind of, remember, we were kids, so we were just doing what everybody else was doing,
right?
And so it begins, that whole concept of, tone is in your fingers. It is true, but it begins in your mind. You have to have a good tonal concept. And by the way, that's not just guitar. That's every instrument, because the main thing is to be able to make a characteristic tone on an instrument. I mean, you want a tenor saxophone player to sound like a tenor saxophone player, alto to sound like an alto, and so working through learning all those solos and stuff helped us get there. But you had to develop that right tonal idea, because you hear guys play and maybe you have a problem with their tone. You're like, man, why does that sound so bright? Or why does that sound that way? Well, the answer usually is because that's the sound that's in their head.
Yeah. That's
the sound that's in there. Until you can develop, listen to more players, experiment with what you're doing, you've got to develop that tonal characteristic. And the other thing is, to further sort of extrapolate from that idea, is that getting out of the whole idea of this being the instrument. The same way that tone isn't in your electronics or all that, this is not the instrument, man. This is an illusion. You're the instrument. You're the instrument. And so that's the other sort of metaphysical part of it, man, is that you've got to view yourself as the instrument and make this thing do what it can do. I think it was, I could be getting this wrong, but I think it was Chet Atkins. Someone said, man, that guitar sounds great. And he set the guitar down and put it on a guitar stand. He goes, how's it sound now?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, so I'm kind of a stickler about words. And so I usually tell my friends that there's a wonderful violinist, fiddler, Kurt Balmer in Austin, Texas. And he's testing out a couple of axes, and he's playing it. And I'm listening. He's doing this on Facebook a few months back. And I go, man, that sounds great. But when I told him, I said, man, you make that thing sound great. Because that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth of it. Ultimately, that's the truth of it. Because you can get someone else to play your rig,
Right.
and it won't sound like Matt. It won't be as comfortable wearing your shoes either. They might be too big. They might be too small.
Right.
So ultimately, yeah, man, you're the instrument. You got to view yourself that way instead of focusing on that thing.
So true. So true. So yeah, maybe tell people how the Al Jarreau thing. Oh, and cheers, by the way.
Cheers.
Hope everybody's got a frosty beverage. It's a nice Sunday afternoon. I do want
Yeah.
to go back and grab a couple of these comments. Let's see real quick here.
Uh-oh.
Kevin
People
Needham said, "I remember when you were with the Mark May band."
Mark May and the Agitators. Yeah, man. That
My
was
goodness, what a slinger, dude!
yeah. Mark's wonderful, man. Actually that was right when I moved back to the Houston area after leaving Beaumont. Mark, I actually auditioned for Mark, and
Okay.
and it worked out. It was great. And you talk about another learning experience,
Mm.
man. Um, yeah, man. I learned a lot in that band. Um, and just about the like playing within the pocket of a nice Texas blues shuffle, you know, and how just absolutely hypnotic that thing is if you've got a drummer that's playing it right, and a bass player for that matter. But yeah, Mark May and the Agitators. Mark's still doing his thing, and he played with Dickie Betts for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did a lot of stuff. His band after I was gone. I think he might have even. Well, I don't want to say he might. Well, I know he played with Dickie Betts for a while. I don't know if he opened for Allman Brothers at the time or not, but he was definitely doing a lot of great stuff around that time. But yeah, man, I learned a lot in Mark's band for
Man, I
sure.
think the first time I saw him was at a donut shop or something in Houston. Is there a place that makes donuts that would have live music every now and then?
Oh my goodness, I don't know about that. That's a deep cut
It was
right
a
there.
weird. It was like on a Sunday night at like 11 o'clock at night or something. Maybe it was just him in a corner. It was like a really crazy place that I saw him. And I was like, man, this guy's special.
Yeah, no, he's great, man. He's great, and he really had that Albert Collins thing together. Great sound, great singer, and another great songwriter, man. Another great song. Mark, see, that's the thing, man. Great songwriters. Most of them are really funny, clever guys, because he's clever, man, and he's always got a twist on a word or on a phrase, and I think that makes him a great songwriter for sure, man.
Let's see who else is here. Antonio Zamorales is here.
That's one of my students from the Lake Jackson area.
He said
Another
Houston donut shops go hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Antonio's another good singer songwriter, man, and he's working on his own project here. Hopefully, we'll hear something from him soon. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Chris Axelrod is here. He was talking about Keith Slack, that was another killer name.
Chris Axelrod, he's a fabulous drummer here in Houston, Texas, man. He's wonderful. He's one of my brothers. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Man. Yeah, so maybe give people an idea of how the Al Jarreau thing came to be and just a bunch of the wisdom that you gained. I mean, I think just being around that guy is going to make you better.
Man, okay, I'll tell you, well, around about '06 or so, um, I had been doing some gigs with Chris Walker. Chris Walker is a phenomenal singer, phenomenal musician, phenomenal bass player. And at the time, he was Al Jarreau's musical director
Hmm.
and had been with Al for years by that time. Um, Formerly with Regina Bell, was her musical director for some time. He went to school in New York City, played with the great Ornette Coleman back in the day. And so I had been doing some work, playing gigs with him. And he says, "Hey man, what are you up to these days?" Um, and I said, "Well, man, just playing gigs, full time musician, and I'm teaching part time." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah, man, just doing the thing." And we kind of got distracted. We got working done. I'm wondering why he was asking. And I said, so after the gig, I said, hey, Chris, give me a call, man. If you need anything, give me a shout. He goes, you know what, man? I will. And so ultimately he called me, and the guitarist at the time was leaving Al, and said, hey, man, do you want to play some gigs with Al? I said, yeah, absolutely, I do. You know, and so I started, I did my first gig with Al was New Orleans Jazz Festival, New Orleans Blues and Heritage Jazz Festival. And that was the first gig, man. And so Chris is cool, man. Chris is a super sweet cat. And so before that gig, he comes over to the house. He sends me the book. He sends me all the music, the charts. And then he sends me all the recordings. So I'm doing my homework. And before that gig, he comes over to the house, man, with his bass. And he goes through all the tunes with me, like super cool. And so there we are in my little home studio and recording and playing. And anytime there was a question, I record him playing a lick or whatever that maybe we're gonna play Al off with a certain crazy lick, So he comes over, helps me out. I'm well prepared. I have about a 40-minute sound check, 35-minute sound check with the band. That's it, and it's the gig, But I was careful to do all my homework and had a really, really good sound check and a really good gig. And even in the sound check, we were playing, the band was sounding great. And Al, always known for his being spontaneous, he goes, we better do Breezin'. And Breezin' is a tune that he recorded with George Benson on the record at that time that hadn't been out for very long. And I know the tune Breezin', but I didn't know that arrangement, nor was I ready with that kind of a sound. But I had brought at the time, just to make things easy, I brought my little Pod XT, back in the day,
Oh, yeah.
And so, man, as soon as Al said that, I used to set up on a riser, and Al looks up the riser, he looks at me, he goes, come down here. I want you down here with me to play this tune because it was a feature, and I'm like, man. And I'll tell you what, man, in about 30 seconds, I bent down and built a sound real quick, like a jazz tone, because nothing in the set really called for that at the time. And so, man, dude, I got down there, boom, 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 and that's as close as it's gonna get. And I went down there, my cable made it all the way down there, and we start playing the tune. And I didn't know the arrangement very well, but I knew the tune. And I wasn't about to say, I don't know that. No, man, now's the time. You got to step up to that plate, Right. So we start playing the tune, and I don't know what it is about Chris and our communication, but even at that time, he gave me some kind of certain look or hand gesture. I wasn't supposed to play with Al the melody. I was either supposed, I can't remember how it goes now, but if I was supposed to mirror him, and then I play something, but somehow I got that message from Chris and fixed it after a couple times. And we played, and at that point I was like, okay, dude, you're going to have to play. You can't half stepping. There's no time for half stepping. You're going to have to play, man. So I played what I could do and just do what I could do as honestly and as genuinely as I can. And I remember, man, I just remember Al saying, like, man, after I played, he goes, oh, he's ready. He's ready. And I said, okay. And that was a good feeling. So I could go into the show now confidently. And so I can't remember now if it was after, or I think it was before the show. It was before the show. Al is like there's a curtain upstage, right? So there's a crossover where you can cross the stage, and I'm coming from backstage, and I'm walking that crossover, and I look up, and there's Al, and I'm still nervous, man. It's like my first gig with him, and I was like, oh, I thought about turning back and going the other way and coming on stage from the opposite side, but he was there, and he sees me, and I thought, okay, just so I walk, and that's where he told me. He says, man, John, in his great preparation, John, great energy, man, it sounds great. So, man, I had a lot of confidence going into that first gig. And so after the first gig, he told Chris, he goes, yeah, I want John, it's great, so I got the gig at that point, and man, truly, Matt, that thing, because I was an Al Jarreau fan before that. I mean, it's a dream come true, man. Total dream come true to be in that band, and to just interact with Al on a friendship level. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I remember when he passed that was a super hard time for you and the guys in the band. I remember seeing a lot of stuff flying around between you guys. Like, man, this is like lost a family member.
Yeah, it was, man, and that was a trip to go through, because Al, when you're with someone, especially like that, you become genuine friends. And there was recently a documentary released on TV1 is the name of the channel, cable channel, and you can still see it streaming on their website right now. TV1 is an Al Jarreau documentary. It's from their Unsung series, is what they call it.
Mm.
And it's a good documentary. I watched it, and I always say this, and you hear this echoed by people in different ways, but I would always tell people, man, the Al Jarreau that you see on stage is exactly the Al Jarreau you get off stage, in the dressing room, at the airport, on the tour bus. It doesn't matter. He wasn't putting on an act for anybody. His public, or rather his private persona, matched his public persona. The guy was just full of life, man, full of life, and you wanted to talk to him. You wanted to get to know him, because I mean, that cat was humming along at a different frequency, man, than everybody else. And that's usually the way it is with those types of brilliant artists, man. They're one-offs, man. They're one-offs, and there's something magnetic about them. Not to mention his enormous talent, man, and the way his mind thought about music, and he was always paying attention. And so yeah, when he passed, it was a little surreal, to see on primetime news at the end of a newscast when they say those ominous words, and now from the entertainment, industry or whatever, American music legend or icon or whatever, Al Jarreau has passed away. And I'm watching that, and I'm going, wait a minute, y'all, that's my friend. I don't know if, well, it was just a different thing, because that I was not looking at that as a famous singer that passed away. That was Al, So it was a little trippy to kind of go through all that, and experience all that. But Larry Williams, great pianist in the band, was with Al on and off for 30 some odd years. Enormous talent, enormous talent. He said it best at the wake, I'm choosing to live in gratitude that we even had that experience, and that's my vibe now. I mean, yeah, the sadness is there. That's life, man. That's life. That's why you hug on your friends while you have them, and that's why you serve them, and spending time with them, really getting to know them in a genuine way, because man, nobody's promised tomorrow. I know that's cliche, but everything can change like that,
Well, we're learning that in this COVID situation too, right?
Mm.
A month ago, just over a month ago, 5 or 6 weeks, I was in Orlando, Florida, doing a big conference down there. We had trips planned to Israel. There were trips planned all over the place, and we're just used to when that trip hits the calendar, it's going to happen, right?
Right.
And
Right.
And all of a sudden, everything's gone. In fact, there may not be big concerts like you and Al were doing for, man, it could be more than a year.
Yeah. I hope not. But yeah, you could be right. I'm an optimist, man, and I'm hoping that we get back to normal sooner rather than later. I understand all both sides. I understand all the precautions and all the hesitance about opening up the economy, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that the further and further we get away from this, I think there's going to be some evaluation, hopefully by some smart people, about how the whole thing was handled, and how we can better handle something like this in the future. But for the moment, again, like you alluded to earlier, or you mentioned earlier, the experts aren't really an expert on this thing right now. So I'm just trying to kind of stay in shape musically and mentally, spiritually, to have the right disposition to deal with today, deal with where we are now. And like I said earlier, like now, today, man, I can call up, Tom over at the Big Easy, or Susan over at Emmett's, another wonderful venue here in Houston. How you doing? What's up? Are you okay? Cool. You're okay? Good. Hey, let's talk about the future, man. Because man, this is a really, really big, artists have to realize, and I'm sure that they do, is a very important symbiotic relationship there is between us and the venues, and we got to look out for each other and help one another. And, I foresee some benefits coming up, man, to keep the doors open of these places that we love to not only come to perform, but also love to come and hear our colleagues and our friends play, that's part of the whole vibe here in Houston. I'm sure it is all over the nation, man, so yeah, I'm an optimist, and I think things are going to get back to normal. I hope sooner rather than later,
For sure. Well, hey, I want to give you just a second to rest your voice here for a second. I want to let people hear a little bit of music. I got another video here of you and Al playing, and we can both take a swig of frosty beverage here, and people can enjoy a little bit of music, and then we'll get back to chatting.
Cool.
It's John. He is John.
All right, man, that was some killer playing, man.
Thank you, man.
That was
Appreciate
a couple
it.
of haircuts ago.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I used to cut it. Man, we'd be gone 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time in the summer in Europe, and I'd cut it down real short because it started getting gnarly towards the end of the tour, and I was like, oh man, I just let it fly.
Well, see,
You
now
know?
the other way you can do is you just let it grow long, and you know they're like, well, I haven't had a haircut in 3 weeks. I'm like, man, I haven't had a haircut in 6 months.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And now with the whole quarantine thing, we're having fun with facial hair. That's the trend. I'm
So you
rocking
said that
quarantine stash.
that clip was from Europe somewhere.
Uh, yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. I used to be pretty good at remembering. I could look and see. Oh, I know where that is, and I still can with some of them. Um, I think the one that you showed at the top was Italy, and I, I think this one that you just played seems like that's in Scandinavia somewhere.
Mm.
Um, but uh, but yeah, it's starting to fade now a little bit.
So talk about the differences, because I know, like in the United States, like the big concerts, it's Beyonce and Zach Brown and Taylor Swift. They're drawing the huge crowds here. But I sort of feel like in Europe and Asia, the jazz guys, the American jazz guys, are drawing huge crowds. South America.
Mhm. Yeah, man, that's absolutely true. I mean, like I said, um, I don't. When I was with Al for those 10 years, um, man, the longest run we did in the U.S. was probably 2 weeks. I mean, we'd go to Europe and do 4 or 5 weeks in a heartbeat.
Right.
You know, it's just different over there. It's a shame. It's a shame because now, even though we weren't a hardcore jazz ensemble, I mean, he's definitely a jazz singer, but he was in different categories, and he blurred some lines, but uh, it was just a shame. We would always think that it was bigger over there than it was here, when jazz is really the only true American export musically that there is, you know. So, I mean, prior to the 1900, everyone wanted to be European, and it wasn't until the turn of the century, musically. I mean, it wasn't until the turn of the century that America started making its own mark, artistically, poetically, and this sort of Americanism, and jazz is a part of that whole thing, So it's our one big musical export. Um, but yeah, it was big over there. And you mentioned, some big names, and when we go and play, um, for example, North Sea Jazz Festival, or Montreux Jazz Festival. I mean, we're there with Carlos Santana, Angie Stone, Erica Badu, these big names. In fact, I mean, we played before Erica Badu one year in Italy. I think it was here. I think it was in Umbria. Um, we played right before her, and the crowd is loving every minute of it. It's loving every minute of it. So yeah, it's a shame, but it's reality.
So where are some of the coolest places you got to play, and some of the coolest people you got to meet?
Um, man, we played all over. Um, we did obviously the U.S., we did Canada, we did South America, um, all of Europe, Central Europe, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union, stuff. One of the, if I'm just the first ones that come to my mind, playing in Belarus was a wonderful, wonderful time. And then we did this run, a 2 week run in Eastern Europe, Bratislava, Slovakia, all throughout there. And it was absolutely wonderful because in some of those places, Al had never been there. So, and they've been waiting for him, since 1985, man, so they were going berserk. And so to be kind of used to the whole thing, and kind of just, you're working, you're playing the gig, and now you're all friends and it's family, and you're going to work and you're having a great time. It's kind of almost going through the motions until you walk out on stage and you play the first note and the crowd is energized, but the second Al walks into view, the place goes berserk. You're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I forgot. This is okay. This is a big thing. Cool. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun being over there. Let's see, Southeast Asia. Well, as far as Asian market, I mean, I guess Singapore, Hong Kong. I never played mainland Hong Kong. I'm sorry, China, but Hong Kong and Singapore, we did play. It was wonderful, man. Wonderful times. Towards the end, we did, I believe, the 30th anniversary of Rock in Rio, humongous festival in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. 170,000 people, man. And we're on a huge stage, and it wasn't even the main stage. And the main stage is kind of this way. So the crowd, if you can picture it, in front of us would kind of serpentine and go to that other stage. So you can mingle, you can go back and forth between stages. And so there's probably, I'd say in front of us, 70-ish thousand, there. And as soon as we're done playing, Katy Perry cranks up at that next stage. So yeah, man. So it was huge on those huge festivals. And I got to meet, I mean, the guys that I was interested in meeting and hanging with and talking to, Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, and those guys like that we would play gigs together. Borelli Lagreen, wonderful guitarist, got to hang and just the benefit is you're kind of working with the guys, so no one sees you as kind of an annoying fan, even though I would totally go fanboy on these cats, but that was kind of the cool thing of just kind of being able to hang backstage and talk to those guys and make friendships.
So growing up in Texas, did you ever, as a kid, think you were just going to be wearing a passport out with that guitar?
No way, man. That's part of the thing that would blow me away. That's part of the thing that would blow me away is to go there and to be, playing like the Nice Jazz Festival, and to be in this wonderful hotel and to get out and walk across the street and go put my feet into the Mediterranean and think about just that, about just being a country boy from Angleton, Texas, and going all the way back to the beginning of my musical career, and to think about the people that helped me do that and instill in you, a proper attitude of discipline for music, all the way back to my middle school band directors, Patsy Hale, Richard Burke, Wayne Hummel, and getting into high school, and David Griffith, all these guys that I keep in touch with today and work with some of them. Those relationships never go away. And then, of course, James Hale, my band director in high school, all the way up to Lamar University, and Dr. Barry Johnson, all of the guys, Wayne Dias, all of those guys that kind of, helped out, in that whole process, that way when the opportunity presented itself, you're ready and you've got some tools and you're equipped, how to behave in a rehearsal, how to approach, a musical situation. And man, and that started in 6th grade band, man. So fortunately for me, I was raised, in a good music programs in school and playing good music, because remember, I was a trombone player. I didn't start playing guitar. I didn't start playing guitar with my buddies in the neighborhood, till 8th grade, kind of just banging around, So I was playing trombone in the high school band, in the symphonic band, playing wonderful literature, man, from great American composers, and playing and hearing these sounds. I didn't know what they were. I couldn't tell you what they were, but I knew that I liked them, these big fat chords, or hearing a diminished chord or whatever it was, a major 7 chord even, and just hearing and going, man, it completely excited this whole thing. I was like, man, what is that? And now that I look back, it was just the whole vibe of playing together. Like, I was one of 5 trombone players in a section, and just the idea of playing in tune with those guys. And of course, being a bass trombone player, man, I had all the bottom end, and I was usually the only one on my part. So I wasn't doubling a part with anybody, but hearing, because I guess, if you're a musician, you hear those things. I guess that's what makes you a musician is finding interest in all of that. Not everybody listens to that, say, man, that's wonderfully in tune. Not everybody does that. I guess they respond on some level, but man, I was listening, and then I'm hearing the woodwinds do this thing, and I'm hearing these other guys do that thing, and man, listen to this chord and all that. So man, that's where it all started. So then when I got to Lamar, of course, it's a continuation of that, playing wonderful music, and that's the key, man, is in a music education, is playing good literature, where you're playing this music that has all this richness about it. Okay, you're not playing, pop tunes and the whole band's in unison.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You're not giving the kids, this kind of low hanging fruit. No, man, top shelf stuff, man. Listen to this. Listen to these chords. Listen to the way these things blend. Listen to how this musical idea comes back. You remember you heard that over in the woodwinds earlier. Now it's in the brass. Look how it's going. You're like, oh wow, man, all that stuff's cool, man. And it all translates. It all translates to any style that you want to play. All of those things translate, and it makes you a better musician. It makes you a better human, man. It's good for the soul,
Well, you talk so much about listening, and this is another story that I remember from you, and I may not even remember this right, but it stuck with me. And I think, as I remember it, you would come back from maybe an early run with Al or somebody, and you were telling us all when we were all hanging out, he goes, man, this guy, he told me, said, everybody at this level knows how to play. I need guys who know how to listen.
Yeah.
And when I was young, man, I didn't really understand that. And it was till I got a little older that I went, oh yeah. And that's like the biggest compliment you can give somebody is, man, on stage, that guy's a good listener.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just as important. Listening, not only when you're not on stage, and by that I mean listening to good music. Again, see, you can only develop a certain vocabulary and a certain understanding of a style and to play stylistically correct if you're immersed in that sort of thing. Jazz, for example, jazz is a lifestyle, man. You got to be listening to that stuff and feeding yourself that stuff. And in time, that's what you hear. See, that's what you're hearing in here. So that when you play, man, I'm hearing Pat Martino, man. I'm hearing that phrasing and I'm hearing that articulation. So that's you start kind of leaning in that direction as you develop your own thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, listening in that respect, and then listening in an ensemble, man. I was a friend of mine asked me something about drummers and what are key things that you listen for in a drummer. And one, obviously, the first answer is drummers got to be able to play time, right? And then I said, and the second thing is not just play time. So you got to be able to play time, but not just play time. In other words, like as a soloist, I like when a drummer plays with me.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Simmons was with Al for 15 years, 5 or 6 years before I was there. He's absolutely wonderful. The dude is brilliant on the drum kit because these are wide open. And listen, in other words, he's not just playing time for you. He's not just playing while you play. He's playing with you and he's listening. And if you're going somewhere, he's going to say, okay, cool. I liked that. Not saying it with the instrument. I like that. Okay, boom. I'm going to take you higher now because you seem like you were going here. Let's go. Here's the third chorus. Now what are you going to do? And I'm like, oh, Mark, now I got to take it higher. I don't know if I can take it higher, And so, but he's challenging you musically and he's listening, knows when to play quiet, knows when to play loud, knows when to lay out and stop playing the drums. And nobody panics. If there's been 48 solos on one tune, he's going to boom. He's going to stop. He's going to get his towel and he's going to towel off or whatever. And everybody else still needs to be able to play time and not be spooked by that sort of thing, but challenged and excited. And okay, cool. Now what do we do? You know? And so yeah, listening, because that can be quite annoying to play with someone that's not listening to the rest of the ensemble, man, and playing with the ensemble and with a good time feel and giving time back to the band as a soloist, for example. You got to play good time too, so, you know. So yeah, listening.
Well, I think so. And I did want to, we got to shout out Big Kenny's here. What's up, Kenny Inman?
Oh, right on.
And then I think you got like half of your families here, like half of these Angleton people, and you got people hollering out to Uncle John and everybody else.
My family's awesome.
Oh, Uncle Frizz, here we go.
There you go. Hey, you know what? I wanted, I thought about, that'd be a great name for a funk band.
Uncle Frizz?
Uncle Frizz, baby. You got Professor Longhair.
That's right.
I got a funk band called Uncle Frizz. Yeah, man. Yeah, those are shout out to my Angleton peeps, my Angleton family. They're the best, dude. They're the best. They're very supportive. They come out to gigs. That's a wonderful thing to have wonderful family, man. And I got a whole mess of them out there in Angleton and beyond.
Man, all these people popping up. I'm throwing these up on the screen.
Yeah.
Man, everybody's here.
Yeah. Childhood friends.
Good times.
Jolando Johnson, wonderful bassist here in Houston. Brendan Nace. Yes, sir. Right on. Yeah, I got a lot of Angleton friends that are popping up too now. Family
Awesome.
and friends, childhood friends. We all grew up together. Pat Williams. I was talking about those great drummers. Pat Williams. He's high on the list. He's high on the list. Wonderful player. We work here in town together, and he's done stuff with Bob James and all kinds of people. And we play here in town, and I play in his group, Pat Williams' group. Same thing, man. Wonderful electric drummer, man. Great cat.
So, you play guitar and you play trombone. Do you still play any trombone?
I do because at Brazosport College, I teach at Brazosport College here in the Houston area, and Alvin Community College as well. And at Brazosport College, I have a tuba student, man. So yeah, we work out some stuff. So I'm playing. He's helping me, and I'm helping him. He's helping me in terms of getting in shape again. So man, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I have a diverse teaching situation going on. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, talk about the teaching.
Yeah, teaching is man, it's been a blessing right now since the gigs have gone away, man.
No doubt.
So I'm teaching students here online. It's a little bit of a struggle, Matt, because sometimes the technology isn't always there to or you've got some bandwidth issues or whatever. So some of us we're doing stuff online, and then also kind of through correspondence. I just sent a bass student a couple of exercises and things, just made a quick video for him and give that along to him, and then I'll make an assignment. He'll send me back a recording. My guitar students, same thing. They'll send over a recording of what they're working on. So it's a little challenging to do that, but I think we're meeting the challenge and getting it done. I hear people talking about this whole new normal thing and what things are going to look like. I don't give much thought to that, but I think that music educators are a little unique, man, because there's really no way to rehearse a wind ensemble or a jazz ensemble online in a virtual manner. I don't think that's going to change. We need, and especially with my students, applied music students, I need to see them, man. I need to be in the same room with them. I need to, play with them, watch them play, stand around and watch them play, if we're working on some certain thing and there's a technique involved, and then playing duets together, sort of thing. But for now, we're making do with the technology, man.
Well, I think one of the things we're learning is, as good as technology is, and imagine, 100 years ago, the Spanish flu thing, they were stuck in their houses too without Skype and without Facebook and without Netflix, right? My goodness. Yeah. And so as good as technology is, and hey, you can take lessons with any guitar player around the world, right? You can dial up Andy Wood in Nashville and take a lesson from him, and you can holler at all these amazing cats. but I think one of the things we're learning is that the value of being in a room with somebody is a lot more than I think maybe we thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I know for me as a student, when I study with someone, I'm watching everything. I'm watching everything. How, as a guitarist, how they articulate, what the left hand is doing, what the right hand is doing, and that's all helpful to me to be there close up to watch that because one of the things that I do as a learning tool is just mimic, just mimic first of all, and then once I get that, I think it's through exploring that, then I try to make it my own thing. Then because ultimately that's what we all want to do. We want to have our own personality in it, So, but I think mimicking is a good way is a good entry point, So yeah, it's important for me as a student to be in the same room, because I think there's something lost in this medium. It can be done. It can be done, but especially if you've got a student that's a beginner and you're really talking about some really basic technique stuff, If I go have a lesson like you're mentioning now, if I have a lesson tomorrow, I could probably be okay in this medium because of the information that we're sharing. I just want some information. Okay, then I'll go and work on that. But I think when you have a beginner and you, for example, all of this has got to be right, all of this has got to be right, or whatever. So you want to be able to see that.
Hey, you got a better right hand than half of my students, man.
See, I mimic, man. I mimic, and not to mention in college, I did take string methods, so I did do all that for a little bit, but I couldn't get a good sound. It was not good.
Sound like somebody strangling a cat for the first year.
Oh yeah, mine was worse.
Well, I will say I've got a buddy, Jeremy Cohen, has got a website called musicmasters.com.
Nice.
And I'll send you a link to that, and I'll send you his information. But it's a site that is built for online learning, and it was actually built long before this whole thing hit. So it's got its own dedicated video and audio pipeline. So it's not using like Skype or FaceTime. It's actually a much better audio and video, and you can share sheet music or charts along with the video and audio. And if you, the teacher, are marking these things up, it's marking up on their screen too. So all real-time sharing of that. And during this time, Jeremy was like, listen, I don't want people to think I'm taking advantage of a crisis here. So I'm not going to be charging my teachers during the quarantine. And then afterwards, it's a pretty minimal fee, honestly. But he's built it for string players because he's a string guy. But yeah, you might want to check out Music Masters as far as it's just a better platform for teaching. And it was sort of in late beta until just a few weeks ago. And he's finally announced, hey, I'm ready for the big time.
Oh, well, that's very cool of him, man. Dude, if you can, if possible, maybe put a link in the comments or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
If possible. Yeah, that way people have something to go to. I'd like to go check that out, man. That's great.
I'm going to throw it up on here. I'm going to throw it up on the screen right now.
Excellent.
Let me see. I don't know where this is going to appear. It's going to appear right there. Whoop.
Right on.
So that's the website that my buddy's got, man, and it's a real. He's sort of taking me through the virtual tour. I haven't done any teaching on the website yet, full disclosure, but I hung out with him and did a virtual tour of the site, and he showed me all the stuff that it can do. So honestly, right now, my wife is a physician. She's a pharmacist and a physician.
Okay.
And so she's working as a consultant for a pharmaceutical company. So our income has not changed. Well, hers hadn't changed at all. Mine is obviously taking kind of a dump. But, so we're in good shape throughout this. So I sort of realized that there's a fixed amount of money that's available for people to spend on teachers. So I'm not trying to go after any of that right now because I know I got buddies that if they're not teaching, they don't have no food in their belly. Right. I'm sort of stepping back right now as a Skype teacher and saying, listen, the guys who need the money, go study with them. Yeah. You and I can talk after this. But But right now I'm trying to leave that for the guys who need the money. But yeah, that Music Masters website, I've not done any teaching on there, but I have done a lot of touring around on it, and it looks pretty amazing.
Well, that's nice. I'd like to check that out. Thanks for sharing that, man. And thanks to him for doing the noble thing. That's very cool of him, man. Right on.
Well, you know, it's one of those things we got to kind of help each other out, right?
Right.
You know, everybody's going to remember after this thing is over who was cool and who wasn't cool.
Right. Right. Good point. Absolutely. But I'll tell you what, man. I need to start checking with friends. I'm a hugger, dude.
Oh, I am too.
Good Lord. To see your good buddy, you're like, hey, man, how you doing? Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm good. Okay, cool. That's just awkward, man.
Elbow bump.
Yeah. You know, so man, ready for at least let's start moving. I think we are at the end of this month, at least moving now in a direction of normal, you know.
Start maybe dip our toe in the water a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't expect it to change overnight, but as soon as we start seeing some movement in that direction, I think that'll do a lot for freaking morale in general, man.
No doubt.
You know. So,
well, hey man, where can people find your music, and where can they find? Do you have a Patreon or anything?
No, I don't, man. I suck at all that. I will tell you this, something that I'm real proud. Recent project that I'm real proud of is Chris Walker did. We did an Al Jarreau tribute record. It's got a lot of greats on it. You should check it out. It's on iTunes, and it's under the name Chris Walker.
Okay.
And I think it's celebrating Al, or celebrating the life of Al Jarreau, and where we did a lot of Al's hits. We recorded a lot of Al's hits, and Chris wrote 2 or 3 new ones for Al. So Chris co-produced that with Larry Williams. Larry Williams again was with Al playing keys and horn. Man, Larry is one of the most recorded cats there is. So if you Google the name Larry Williams saxophone to make sure you get the right one or whatever, he's got a very extensive discography, and has worked with everybody. I mean everybody. And so he co-produced that record with Chris, and man, it sounds wonderful. I'm on to 2 or 3 or 4 tunes on the record, and I'm really proud of what we did on that. So I think I'd like people to check that out for sure. Yeah. We were, before all of this madness happened, we were starting to do some shows in support of that record, with Chris Walker fronting the band now and singing, Josh Dunham, formerly with Prince, and a whole bunch of others taking Chris's spot at bass, Mark Simmons back again playing drums, Larry Williams playing keys, and David Caceres from here in Houston, Texas. David Caceres playing second keys and alto, tenor, and soprano. We were just starting to get out and do some shows in support of that record, and had some scheduled for March and April, but obviously those have been postponed. So that's the latest thing, and that's kind of the biggest thing that we're working on right now. Real proud of it. So if you guys can go check out iTunes, it's on Spotify as well. Chris Walker, celebrating Al Jarreau. Yeah.
Awesome. Here we go. Here's Maria has you can find Chris Walker on Apple Music. Indeed.
Boom. Coming through. They're coming through with the data.
Awesome. Well, hey, man, thanks for doing this chat. And to all of you guys watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I've been trying to do a couple of these live streams a week with some really interesting cats from around the world. And I may need to holler at Keith Slack, too, to see what he's up to. That's another great guy to talk to.
Right on, man. I'll be tuning in, Matt. This is a really cool thing you got going on here, man. I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of it, and I appreciate all the people that tuned in to check it out. Looks real slick, and keep it up, man. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, man. Well, take care. We're gonna watch the guitar solo on the way back out again, and thank you guys, everybody, and we'll see you on the other side. Don't get the Rona.
Right on. Wash your hands.
It's John.
He is John.